Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today. And obviously, thank you to Venture Cafe for, letting me speak on mindfulness and marketing. I was trying to think of a way that I could present this almost as if we were still in a roundtable kind of discussion. So I figured the best approach is I'm going to run through my presentation. If you want to leave questions in the chat box, I'm going to check in at the end. But in the meantime, if you ask a question and somebody else sees the chat and has a really, informative answer or just wants to share their own insight, please feel free to continue the conversation while I'm going over my presentation, just because I feel like even though I'm talking, I don't necessarily feel comfortable being like a figurehead of sorts. And I think that we all kind of have our own insight and information that we could all bring to the table. So I just wanted to kind of figure that would be a good way, and then maybe people can connect while I'm discussing mindfulness and marketing. So I guess that's just my I guess the beginnings of it. So I am going to, I guess, share my screen and we'll just jump right into this. Okay, perfect. Share, and then from the beginning. All right, can everybody see this? Thumbs up. All right. So thank you again for being here for the mindfulness and marketing discussion. Again, my intro page, I'm Sarah DeGeorge. I'm a digital marketing specialist. I work in PR, paid and organic marketing, so search engine optimization, social media marketing, and management. Currently, I'm public relations coordinator for a nonprofit up in Eastern Maine, and I'm also managing the digital marketing for a startup. And past experience, I was social media director for an online female-based publication, paid marketing associate, SEO content manager. So I've kind of run the entire marketing gamut. But as equally important as I would say my background is, I became focused on mindfulness and marketing after a really bad burnout and breakdown in 2018. I was not only doing work for my clients that I work for, but also because I'm the face of my own, business. I'm an independent contractor / freelancer. I need to market myself. And I kind of went a little bit too hard on the marketing. And that led me to just overwork myself. And I didn't realize, I was very embarrassed for a long time to even discuss it because I just felt like I was on my own. But I began to, once I got out of, the burnout and I was starting to feel better, talk about it a little bit more openly with my other entrepreneur friends, and they were like, I'm feeling the exact same way. So I was like, maybe there's something to be said here. We're always kind of hearing about marketing best practices, but we're not really talking about personal best practices in marketing because we're all individuals and we're all very nuanced. So I wanted to start this discussion, one, to perhaps give you a little bit of information of how you can go about being a little bit more mindful in your marketing, but also to open up the conversation, give yourself a little bit of grace if you're not feeling right in your marketing, and just give people kind of the permission to be like, you can sit down, you can readjust. Because I think sometimes when we get so into one direction, it's kind of scary, or we feel like it isn't a best practice to pivot. But again, I just want to have an open discussion that it is perfectly okay. And especially in the current circumstances that we're in, I think it's a good time for, just mindfulness in really everything that's going on in our lives. So with that being said, I guess I'll just jump right in. So the first stage in mindfulness and marketing is analysis. You need to analyze information. That might not seem super mindful, but I promise it does get to mindfulness when you start analyzing yourself, your customer base, or your audience. So the first thing that I would say with mindfulness and marketing is absolutely begin with yourself. Kind of sit down and think about who you are. What do you stand for? What are your values? And these can be personal, business. They could be a little bit of both. I know when you are your own kind of, you're the face of your business, they kind of do interact in specific ways. How do they connect with your business? And how are you feeling in your marketing right now? What is working and what isn't? And this is kind of a practice that I would say you can definitely sit down with. You can start taking notes. And I would also say, when you begin with yourself, this is a living document, because I will say who I was maybe in I'm just going to use 2012, is different than who I am now. And you want to make note as to whether these changes are authentically from you and they're not like an outside source that's changing how you feel and what your values are. You want to make sure that you're sitting down and saying like, no, this is authentically who I am now. I've changed. These are my marketing goals. This is my business goals. They're a little bit different, but that's okay. So again, begin with yourself, because when you are an entrepreneur, it is yourself that you are beginning with. It's an idea, you're passionate about a certain, concept or, business idea, and you went for it. And, that should always be kind of the light, your northern star that you're focusing towards. With that being said, the next part is also on the flip side. When you are in business, whether you're a solopreneur, you have like a brick and mortar, move to your customer base when it comes to, beginning to kind of understand and get towards that mindfulness. What have you created in your marketing that customers expect from you? Some ideas I gave are a certain social media schedule. Maybe people expect a post from you at, 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. A video they look forward to. Maybe you get on Instagram Live, or maybe you post a YouTube video on a regular basis, a weekly email, or even something as simple as your response times when it comes to, say, your marketing on social media, email marketing, how quickly you respond. And with those kind of concepts, you want to see like, what have customers said that they enjoy learning from you or purchasing from you, or just, getting from your business. What feedback have you been given on your products, services, or content? Do you feel good about what you're sharing? Because that might be give an idea of maybe things aren't so much in alignment if you're not feeling so great about what you're sharing anymore with your marketing. And what would you change and what would remain the same? Kind of gathering both the ideas of starting with yourself, but then understanding your customer base and what information you have right now is a good way to then see what they're enjoying, what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying, and kind of meet in the middle from there. And then with that, you want to adjust from that data. Sorry if I kind of stop for a little bit. I have to keep shifting the videos around, so I apologize for that. Some tips when it comes to, what and when you share with your customers, definitely dig into the analytics. So if you're on Instagram, you can look at your Instagram insights. If you have a website, you can look at Google Analytics. Usually your email provider or, the email platform you're using has analytics as well that you can look at, just to kind of understand open rates. How are people engaging with some of your content? What content are they engaging with, what they aren't engaging with, and kind of understanding how the customers are reacting to what you're putting out there. And this can really be beneficial because you can see from a statistical data standpoint how you can begin to reorganize your marketing based on what you enjoy and what you don't necessarily feel is in alignment with either your time availability, how you want to present yourself, and so on and so forth. Another way is you can create a poll to ask your customer base online or via email what they may wish to hear more about from you and what they care about from your marketing. Maybe something that you're sending out really isn't resonating to a lot of them, and they're like, I'm not really opening this, or I'm not really engaging with a certain social media post that you write, but I really love when you do a social media post that's either maybe less personal or more business oriented. This kind of information can really see where you can shift your marketing away from and what you can put more effort into. And it's especially helpful when you're able to begin to realize perhaps like the marketing that I'm doing, or maybe a certain social media engagement post that you do every week that you really love. Well, everybody's loving this too. And maybe another social media post that you're doing to market that people aren't engaging with, they're kind of giving you that idea of like, not really into this. And then you can be like, okay, maybe I can start to shift more of my efforts into what I enjoy with my marketing, now that I know that the thing that I'm not necessarily putting a lot of time and effort or maybe enjoyment into isn't really resonating with them anyways. And then another way to adjust is to absolutely request feedback from your most engaged customers. I think generally, as long as you're keeping kind of like a little bit of your hand on the pulse of your customers, you know who your most engaged are, especially on if you have a social media account or any sort of email marketing where you see open rates. These are the kind of customers that you can request a little bit more feedback just to understand what they like and what they don't like from a more personal, anecdotal standpoint. And then why is this important? It offers you a starting point to adjust your marketing. Without this kind of data that's kind of more statistical, as well as your own personal background, your mission, your values, why you started your business, you wouldn't really be able to gauge exactly where that nice kind of sweet spot is between what you enjoy and what your customers enjoying. I'd like to believe, and this isn't always necessarily true, but when we're really being mindful and authentic with ourselves, we tend to attract like-minded customers because they like what we have to say. They like our product, they like our service, they like working with us. And with that being said, usually the data will show that what you're feeling that you're enjoying and what you're not enjoying is actually what your customers are also enjoying and not enjoying. Again, this is anecdotal. I've seen it, when I've kind of pivoted, that if I had an audience, they'd let me know like, yeah, I really enjoyed these blog posts. I really wasn't engaging with this. And I was like, well, I was really enjoying these blog posts and I really wasn't engaging with this either. So that's good information to know. And then looking at the data, I can see, yeah, most people were jumping, my bounce rate on my website was off, or people weren't opening this email, or I had more engagement and comments on this type of marketing that I really put my heart and soul in, as compared to something I did not put a lot of, I put effort in and I wanted to put it out there, but it wasn't necessarily my favorite thing to talk about. And then again, data adjustment is important because it gives you statistical and anecdotal data on what customers engage with, their preferences, and how you can align this information with how you want your continued marketing to be. And then with that being said, I guess we're moving into actual mindful marketing. Now that you understand your customer base a bit more and their needs, it's also important to then look at yours. Again, we're kind of now getting into the point where we're like, this is what my customers are saying, this is what I'm feeling. Now let's sit down and really think about how I could put this into some sort of implementation moving forward with my marketing. So what makes you happy sharing? That's definitely, with marketing, something you really need to think about. Do you like sharing a post about what you're doing in your day because you want your marketing to be a little bit more personal and more about you as a brand than your product or service? Do you enjoy sharing a weekly email recapping the things that you did during the week, or a new product or service that you're really proud of, if that's your business? These are things that you really want to sit down with. You want to make sure that you're really feeling happy in what you're sharing with your marketing, especially if you are, again, your own brand. I think it can come through very easily with marketing if it's really not something you're passionate about and you're just kind of sending out the marketing because you feel that you need to be sending something out every so often to still stay under, or right in front of your audience. And so with that being said, what can you share without pushing yourself too hard to do so? I think these are the kind of marketing material that you can easily share. This is something that you don't really feel like is a chore when you're writing it up. So whether it's an email that you really enjoy, that's something to be mindful of. If you enjoy, sending out a more personalized email every week talking about your own week, or you enjoy just sending an email saying, hey, just checking in, this is what we've been up to, like, that's up to you. And I think that making sure that you're understanding how you want to present yourself and what you enjoy, sharing on, a basis that you have set up is a great way to market yourself. Another thing is, what a big thing in marketing is, like, what platforms you enjoy sharing on. There is this kind of, I feel like a couple of years ago, it was very easy for people to end up on, like, say, all social media platforms. They had a Pinterest account, they had a Twitter account, they had an Instagram account, Facebook, so on and so forth. And they were only kind of half updating some of them. They were updating some more. Some accounts they just never updated. And I feel like in marketing, that's a very big area where people burn themselves out on, because they're trying to get in front of their audience, but they don't necessarily know where their audience is, which goes back to why it's good to analyze, how your customers are engaging, but also to key into, if you really enjoy posting on Facebook and that's where your audience is, there's no real need to be on all of the other platforms, because it's better to really engage on one or two social media platforms than be on every platform and only half engage on some. And then, you'll know which platforms just feel more like a chore for you to update, and maybe you can start to adjust accordingly and, kind of disassemble those platforms. They can still exist, but, you just kind of don't really promote anymore, and you can kind of give all your focus to, say, the platforms that you enjoy the most. Another kind of hot button topic is also, how often do you enjoy sharing with marketing? And that's definitely something that, we all can be a little bit mindful of as well. Again, there's best practices, and then there's also personal best practices. And best practices will say, like, oh, you should really be posting X amount of times on Facebook or on Instagram, or you should send out this many emails a week. But in reality, if you can't keep up with that, it's really not going to create a sustainable marketing plan for you. So it's better to create a schedule that you're mindful of, that you can sit down, write up whatever it needs to be, whether it's social media posts and email, send it out, and it be of quality instead of quantity. Because I think that sometimes, and I think we're getting to a point where there's an understanding that it's better to have high quality information with your marketing than just a lot of low quality, just, information being sent out for a quantity basis. So that's also really important. And then lastly, especially when you are your own brand and this is your own business, how vulnerable are you willing to be? Sometimes you get into marketing and you share a little bit of yourself because you're the brand, and all of a sudden you feel like you don't want to share so much anymore. You want to get back to the business, but now people have become accustomed to you being really open and vulnerable. Or on the flip side, you're very business oriented, but you kind of want to let a little bit of your own personality get into your marketing, but you've never done that before. And I think that you need to figure out how comfortable you are with you being the brand, being such a focal point. Do you want to be a little bit less in the spotlight? Do you want to be a little bit more? And how much do you want to involve your customer base in your own life? And with your own life, it doesn't necessarily need to be like, I walked the dog this morning. It could be something, just as simple as like, hey, how are you doing? This week I went on vacation, or some sort of email letting your customer base know a little bit about yourself. And that comes down to your comfort level as well. I've seen some people just get a little bit, they went a little bit too far with the personal, and they had a hard time retracting, and but they needed to, because they just no longer felt comfortable sharing so much. And I've had other individuals that I know that were very business oriented, but they were too afraid to begin to put themselves into it because it just wasn't accustomed to what their customers were used to. And it was scary on both ends because they needed to make this decision, but that decision definitely, once it was made, allowed them to be a little bit more authentic in what they were trying to, approach with their marketing. The one thing that is really hard when getting to mindfulness, and this is kind of what I touched on earlier with like, are these changes that you want to make based on your own personal changes, or is this a comparison game? And that's why it's good to sit down to become mindful in your marketing, because you want to make sure that any adjustments you make are because you wanted to make them, and not because you saw somebody doing something that you want to then, emulate. Because when we build our businesses, we tend to want to emulate the others that came before us. We see some business doing really well on social media, or they have a killer email campaign. We like what they're writing about, or we see their successes and we're like, well, I want to do that too. But again, is it really you being mindful of how you want to do your marketing? Or are you just trying to do your marketing based on somebody else? And again, there's no like ill intent with this. It's just sometimes when things aren't working out, we get into a scarcity mindset. I know I've been in it before where I panic and I see other people doing well and I start to get nervous. I'm like, am I doing okay? And then I start to think like, oh, should I be doing something different? How should I be doing it different? That person's doing it differently. Should I be doing it like them? And then I sit down and I realize when I put pen to paper, I'm like, well, they are much different than I am. Their marketing is much different. They're in a different niche than I am. So how is this going to benefit me? And, you know, in these instances, when you tend to shift away from being mindful in your marketing and you begin to go into that scarcity mindset, this could lead to overselling, overdoing, and overworking. You're in a panic mode, you're, you know, working too much to market yourself to kind of compensate because you feel that you're not doing enough. You're overselling, you know, what you can and can't do, whether it's, you know, product, services, you know, or anything that you offer, and you just end up overdoing. And then, you know, you might feel burnt out, or you might not enjoy what you're doing anymore. And it's just key to be sustainable in what you in your marketing. So while the framework of others can be taken into consideration, we're not, you know, reinventing the wheel or anything like that. Most things, there is a framework based on something that somebody else did when creating your marketing concepts. Mindfulness is who you are and what your brand is, and that's what needs to be focused on. So then this is that was the analysis, and now you move into more of the actionable part of mindfulness and marketing, where you're kind of putting it into practice. And I do want to say that even after this conversation, action doesn't necessarily mean right now. And especially with how we're all feeling, action just might be thinking about it and then implementing later when things are a little bit more secure and we're a little bit we're not in such a time of uncertainty. So I hope that, you know, after we go over this, you don't necessarily have to put action into action right now. And yeah. So again, one thing that I think is a major actionable step is creating transparency, I cannot talk today, at a level you decide as a solopreneur. Again, this is your business. And if you feel you want to begin to take a step back from how much you want to share, some options or step to share more is sharing a certain number, you know, less blogs or informational pieces that you send out each week, each month. And beginning to shift your focus away from yourself and onto another subject, or, you know, shifting a little bit more, you know, kind of adding a little bit of a personal piece if you want to add a little bit more of yourself into an email, just seeing how your audience reacts to it. You might want to share a little more and edge into a personal approach, see how your customers react, email, social media posts, any of your content. These are just ways that you can create a transparency, or, you know, based on what you want to share with your customer base. And then begin ensuring your voice matches the comfort level of your transparency. If you know, are open to discussions about your day, for example, and you make a social media post, would love to know, you know, what you're doing in your day, just to create that engagement with your audience. If you really don't want to have that, then maybe don't create your copy in a way that's inviting conversation or engagement. I know it might sound a little bit harsh. You're not necessarily putting up like a stop block with your marketing, you know, to say like, I don't want to talk with you. Obviously you still want discussion, but maybe you don't want a discussion on such a personal level. And that can go for, again, content, blogging, you know, if you want blog comments, if you want emails, responses, social media content. You know, sometimes when marketing, we become so accustomed to how we started that we feel stuck on sharing, even when it's no longer serving us. And you want to find ways to engage your customers with the adjustments you make, and make sure to adjust in a consistent manner. You don't want to just all of a sudden go completely pivot. You might just be like, again, a new line in an email if you want to share a little bit more. It might be omitting a call to action if you want to begin to put a little bit of a wall up between you and your audience. Small little steps so that people slowly become adjusted to this new type of marketing that's a little bit more mindful of who you are as an individual. And sustainable social media approaches is definitely another topic that I think a lot that comes into mindfulness and marketing a lot. Social media is a great marketing tool, but with any good marketing, sustainability is key. You definitely want to understand where your audience is, going back to letting go of some social media accounts and keeping some social media accounts as your main focus. If you don't need to be everywhere, but should be where your audience is. That, goes without saying. And that can really be great when you're liking the platform, you understand it, and you're really optimizing, and it comes easy for you instead of, again, feeling like a chore. And then if there isn't a platform or there's a platform you don't enjoy, then again, begin to phase it out. It doesn't have to, again, be, I'm just not going to post on it anymore. It just might even be letting people know, hey, we're not going to be updating on this platform anymore. Please join us on Facebook or Instagram, or, follow us on Pinterest. And create a social sharing schedule that fits your own schedule or that of your customers. I always use this it's so simplistic. I know it's not this simple when it comes to social media, but it's just a good way of just putting sustainability in perspective when it comes to how you're sharing. And this could be social media, so on and so forth. If you post every day and make $100 a month from it, but you give up after 3 months because you're burnt out, you can't keep up with this, you're on so many platforms, you made $300. But you post half as much because it fits more into your social sharing schedule that feels right for you. You like the platforms and make $50 a month, but you continue to do so for a year and made $600. Consistency over quantity is definitely key. And I'm sitting here panicking, hoping that I did that math correct in my head, because I did not go to school for math. So hope that's right. And I didn't just embarrass myself. Another aspect is engaging with customers while keeping a wall of self-care approaches between you and your business. Again, kind of going back to whether you want to share more or share less, but this is definitely, making sure that there is a little bit of a barrier between you and your business so you don't feel so involved that you can't break away at the end of the night, which is also, a big part of marketing. Sometimes being available 24/7 is just not, it's absolutely not sustainable. It's not sometimes not sustainable. It's 100% not sustainable. So again, creating calls to action at the end of an email or social media post when you're available to maybe have a conversation. I know I've seen some emails where they're like, respond to this email. I'd love to hear what you're doing. But then they send another email that doesn't have that call to action. So perhaps that's just the time when they don't really have the availability to respond to all emails. And is a good way to perhaps engage people in certain points, but also put that wall up that not every email I can, have a conversation with you with at the very moment. Inviting your audiences to become a part of your story by personal emails, to engage personally and build rapport. Again, during those periods where you want to have customers email you, that's a great way to build up rapport with your audience. But it also, again, is situational, and you can be able to, be the one in charge of when and how you respond, and, giving individuals that permission. So it feels like you're still engaging with them, but you're also in control of how often you're engaging. Another way to engage with customers is obviously Instagram stories, lives, and at a level that feels right. I really like Instagram stories and lives, or Facebook lives. I think that they're really a great approach as long as you feel comfortable being in front of a screen. They also give you the ability to determine when you might be more available to engage with, customer asking questions, your audience asking questions, and still marketing yourself and presenting yourself as either a thought leader in your industry or just sharing what it is you're doing. But you determine when you go live. So I think that that's a good marketing tool to have. And again, it kind of puts a little bit of the control on your end, but also puts a wall up that after this Instagram live, like, you can go back to, your existence, and you don't have to be in front of a camera and be perfectly on all the time. And I think another part of marketing is just allowing a reasonable amount of time to respond to customers and audiences. They're absolutely best practices. You shouldn't really go more than 48 hours without a response, but if you begin with marketing where you're responding to social media posts all the time, and very quickly, or you respond to emails very quickly, people get accustomed to that. And if that's not really who you are, and that's not being mindful of your time, and you're feeling a little bit burnt out, it might begin might be wise to add a, I respond to, or I will respond within 48 hours, or even, make it so that people can kind of see consistently how quickly you get back on social media or any other platform. And then also kind of redirecting any sort of comments you might receive in a way where you're keeping the conversation, the discussions on brand, but keeping an eye on discussions that feel invasive. If you start to see comments that feel a little bit invasive, that might be a cue to either redirect the conversation or maybe begin to take a step back and maybe not share as much, or create more of a dialogue that says, like, this is what I'm willing to share. I'm not going to get into these discussions, just so people can see that you are putting that wall up and they understand, they begin to understand if you put it out there, like, this isn't necessarily something I can talk about. I might not have the background to talk about this. This isn't my expertise, or I just don't feel comfortable discussing this, are all great ways to kind of, again, put that wall up. Now getting a little bit off of digital marketing is networking, which is also definitely something that we need to be mindful of. And it is a form of marketing. Now, I actually enjoy being in front of people. It's been interesting doing virtual stuff, but I'm definitely good in person. So I'm excited for Venture Cafe to be in person again, really. But networking is also something that can get very tiresome very quickly, and is absolutely a part of your marketing that needs to definitely have a mindfulness aspect. It can be a great tool to, begin marketing yourself and your business when you're talking to somebody and you're having a great conversation. But if you have too many of them, you might no longer feel in alignment with yourself. You might end up with 100 business cards and have no idea how they even ended up, in your house. So networking is definitely something to be mindful of. Just as digital marketing needs to be sustainable, so does in-person networking. What I've done, right around the time of my burnout, I was probably at every networking event I could be at. I was talking to a lot of people. It was nice, but it wasn't sustainable. And it definitely led to me feeling, very tired, unsure of even, I was like, am I doing this correct anymore? I started to question myself. So now what I absolutely do with my marketing is I plot out how many events I can mentally handle each month. And I hope, I think that's a good practice for anybody. Give yourself permission to attend an event if it's beyond what you already do. Evaluate and let it go if it didn't feel like it was in alignment with how you want to market yourself. The people weren't necessarily your target audience. I think it's hard to say, like, oh, I really want to be a part of this, but it doesn't feel right. It's not worth, attending and marketing yourself continuously if it's not going to be an event that you're going to stick with. Join the Facebook group if allowed or available prior to joining to understand the tone, style, and approach of the event. And again, join events that feel best for you. If you enjoy more formal, then perhaps chamber events or local business events may be best. If you're more casual, then maybe a conversational meetup versus networking event might be more tailored for an intimate approach, if that's just kind of how you work with your customers. And then sustainable outreach to clients and customers. If part of your marketing includes, say, a freebie sales funnel, then automation is definitely something that I would say is very mindful of your time. You can write and send emails specific to times when you are available to have a conversation. Make this known in the copy. That's something that you could send out, on a personalized basis. You can also create a proper funnel that covers your business liability while, you want to make sure that, you're following CAN spam laws and all of that, while also offering easy to access material if, say, you need to purchase, ebook or anything. Small businesses tend to scale a little bit slower just because of overhead. So a lot of times in the beginning, a download requires a physical email to be sent, but setting up an automatic email with the download can save time and effort. And then even beyond that, if you want to be a thought leader, a great marketing tool is, creating online courses on learning platforms to teach a class and receive passive income. Is also presenting yourself as a thought leader again, and is a great way to be mindful of your marketing. It's a one-time, you create the class and then it sits there. Writing an ebook and selling on online platforms is another way for something to be automatic where you're not in charge of the dissemination. Sometimes cost and time are a factor, but also, investigate that kind of cost versus benefits. The same way people, I wrote, can justify hiring a house cleaner because the work is just too time consuming. If you feel the benefits outweigh the cost, consider outsourcing these tasks to automation platforms or even to a virtual assistant if you're able to afford that. So basically, after all this, bringing this all together, marketing, whether in person, digital, email, content, social, all need to be sustainable if you're the face of the business. And while there absolutely are algorithms, I'm not here to deny that, based on best times, what you should be posting, search engine optimization tactics, they don't necessarily reflect 100% you as a person. Again, best practices, but then there's personal best practices. Sustainability and mindfulness is key to continued success in marketing. You want to give yourself the grace to sit with what works, what doesn't, and how much you want to expose your own self into your business and in your marketing efforts and your marketing material. In the end, we want to be authentic, and wearing a mask or pretending and pushing can only last for so long. And be mindful, be authentic. So that is my slideshow. Trying to get back into this. So want to look into the chat right now. Just want to say thank you. And if anybody has any kind of questions as of now, feel free to post. All right, Jane said, how do you recommend getting your okay, sorry, that was private. So I will answer that privately. Sorry, I didn't even see that. Math is good. I like that. I was gonna say, I can reply to Jane privately. I mean, Jane, if you're still here, if you want me to ask this question publicly, I can. Or if not, that's fine. But I am here to answer questions.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
How do you feel we should react socially to the COVID problem going on right now? I mean, when I say socially, I mean two parts. One, for the pandemic, and then also, when do you think we should start posting what we normally would post post-pandemic?
I think, so what I'm seeing right now, there's a lot of, if you can tie COVID-19 into your social, in a way that it's not just like you're wanting to talk about it because it's a talking point. I think that's kind of where a lot of companies, they're talking about it, but does it really have anything to do with their brand? So I think I would acknowledge it, maybe just say, like, here's what we've been doing. We understand. I'm not obviously writing a social post for you, but if you want to acknowledge the things that are going on just from like a personal standpoint, that's fine. I am not against being business as usual right now, as long as it's not kind of like in bad taste, because people are still running a business right now. We might be in a situation that's a little bit different, and we have to take into account there's a high unemployment rate. Things just aren't great. But at the same time, if you are running your business, you can't necessarily put it on hold to just kind of be talking about COVID-19. I think if you discuss it in a way where you're like, we understand what's going on, but then you kind of go back in with a tasteful approach to wherever your business is, where you just kind of post in a way where it's what you would normally talk about. Maybe you need to alter a few things. I think that would be a good approach. So I hope
that coming out of it. How about coming out of it? Coming out of it.
I think that's so uncertain right now, just because we don't necessarily know when that's going to happen. I think just coming out of it is just going to be like, again, if you address it in the front end, when you come out of it, it's just honestly just going to be just kind of like, all right, we're out of it now. We don't need to necessarily discuss it anymore, if that makes sense. Just because, again, you don't want to get too far into just like talking about it just to talk about it, because it is kind of like it's the main topic of every discussion. I think that coming out of it, it'll just be kind of like, all right, we're out of the thick of it. We can really talk about business as usual again. And I don't think it's going to, offend anybody. And it really shouldn't. If you are still running a business, we do still need to do what we can for our business, but with an understanding of our audience and what they're going through right now. If you understand your audience is, in a specific sector that's been really hit high by the unemployment rate and furloughs, then, you have to make sure that you kind of touch on that. But as we kind of get out of this, it might be, wise to just kind of, then kind of shift back into business as usual without needing to talk about things are okay again. It's like, maybe it's not so much, but subtlety is key and just keying into your target audience.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, of course. Oh, that was good. Shelly just shared something, came across a study on marketing during COVID-19. That's really, thank you so much for that. That will definitely be helpful. I would, people want hear less or more from certain businesses. That's good to know. I'll be checking into it as well. So I appreciate that. And let me go back, because Jane, how do you recommend getting your select followers off Twitter to move to your business account? I was going to say for Jane, do you mean like, how would you shift from one platform to the other? Just so I make sure that I answer this correctly.
Yes, so I have a Twitter handle that I was using before I started my business. And then as I started my business, I created a new one under the business. And I want to get some of those folks that were following me onto my new account, but I'm having a hard time doing that. So do you have any recommendations?
And you've kind of done like posts like, I want,
Yes.
follow me on this. Okay. I mean, I would even, it's one of those things where you can't, based on, again, your own approaches, you could privately, send a message to say followers that, were really engaged with you on this platform and say like, I'm really trying to shift over. I'm not necessarily going to be, engaging with this platform so much. I saw that you were, you always engaged with me. I'd love to see you over on this platform. Sometimes it's just like that personal approach. It seems sometimes invasive, but I don't really think it is, because you're acknowledging that you saw that they were an active participant on the old page, and it gives that nice personal touch. And then it hopefully will shift them over to the new page and gives them an incentive. Because again, going back to algorithms, sometimes people just don't see a tweet, or some people just don't see a post. It's not necessarily that they don't care. They just might literally have not seen it, because based on the social media platforms, it just was not front and center, and it got shifted down. So
Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions? I know we have like 2 minutes left. It's okay if we don't. That's fine. But I thank you, for all being here. You can easily find me. Instagram is probably the easiest social media platform to find me on. It's my name. It's just Sarah DeGeorge, SarahDegeorge. Or you can send me a personal email at sardegeorge@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to, continue a discussion or talk about this more, or even just email you the slideshow if you want a copy of it. So just let me know. But I hope it was informative. I hope it at least gave you a little bit of, grace, or maybe some starting points as to how you would want to shift your marketing. Again, we're in a really uncertain time. And I understand that. And, money might be tight, time might be tight, just your general, how you're feeling might be a little heavy. But I just, I hope that you take away something, and maybe even if you don't start it today or next week or next month, hopefully you'll be able to carry something away from this, that you'll be able to, slowly pivot so you feel a little bit more mindful in your marketing. So I thank you all very much, and I hope you have a good day. So.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate it. And thank you everybody else for joining us. Just to echo what Sarah said, we really appreciate you all taking time to be here.